Okay, so picture this. You've just won the fight against breast cancer, only to find yourself in a whole new battle. And this time, it's against the very treatments that saved your life. For millions of women, this is their reality. But what if a simple over-the-counter sleep aid could actually change all of that? Well, today we're going to dive into a really groundbreaking study that asks that exact question. 1 in 8. That's a huge number, right? That's how many women will have to face breast cancer in their lifetime. It's a statistic that, hits incredibly close to home for so many of us. And that's exactly why finding better ways to support survivors isn't just important, it's absolutely critical. And here's the really tough part for so many survivors. I mean, they've beaten cancer, which is incredible. But the treatments themselves can leave them with these just life-altering side effects. You've got hormone therapy, which is a lifesaver for so many, but it can feel like a new kind of prison. It messes with everything, their sleep, their mood, even their most intimate relationships. All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll get into the tough side of survival. Then we'll look at the search for some relief and a really interesting idea about melatonin. We'll see how they tested it, what the results were, and finally, what all of this could actually mean. So, what is this difficult side of survival really like? Well, for a lot of women on hormone therapy, it's like their body gets thrown into menopause like overnight. We're talking about a sudden, really intense, medically induced shift that their bodies are just not ready for at all. Okay, so here's a little bit of the science behind it. Turns out, about 2/3 of breast cancers are what's called ER positive. And what that means is that the cancer literally uses the body's own estrogen as fuel to grow. So the treatment makes a lot of sense, right? You just cut off the fuel supply. It's a brilliant way to fight the cancer, but it comes with a pretty big downside. And this is that cost. When you starve the cancer of estrogen, you're also starving the rest of the body of it. And the result is this cascade of really severe menopause symptoms. I mean, we're talking about nonstop hot flashes, totally sleepless nights, mood disorders. This isn't just about being a little uncomfortable. This stuff steals your quality of life and makes it so hard to get back to normal after cancer. So yeah, survivors absolutely deserve better options. And that's why there's been this huge search for a solution. Something that can ease all these side effects without, just piling on more problems. The thing is, right now, the options aren't great. There are some drugs, like certain antidepressants or anticonvulsants, that can help a bit, but they often come with their own nasty side effects. We're talking brain fog, trouble concentrating, that feeling of just not being yourself. It's a really awful choice to have to make. Which set of miserable symptoms are you willing to put up with? But then, what if the answer was sitting right there on a shelf in every pharmacy? Researchers started looking at a really common supplement and asked a pretty bold question. Could melatonin, the sleep stuff, actually be the key? I mean, we all know melatonin, right? It's that hormone our bodies make to help us sleep. You can buy it over the counter pretty much anywhere, and it's known to be really safe. For years, we've just thought of it as a simple sleep aid. But what if it could be a whole lot more? So why even think of melatonin? Well, it kind of checks all the boxes. It's known to help with sleep and mood. It can even help regulate body temperature. So right there, it's hitting some of the biggest side effects. But the real kicker, the thing that makes it a potential game changer, is that last point. It seems to selectively block estrogen's effects right in the breast tissue, which is what you want, without getting in the way of the actual cancer treatment. Okay, so having a great hypothesis is one thing, but to really know if it works, you need rock-solid science to back it up. And that is exactly what these researchers set out to do. They designed what's basically the gold standard for clinical study. And here's the basic plan. They found a group of breast cancer survivors who are really struggling with these side effects. They split them into two groups. One gets melatonin, the other gets a fake pill. And then they just measured what happened. Super simple, really elegant, and potentially very powerful. Let's dig into the details a little. So they got 60 survivors. They were randomly split up. One group gets 3 milligrams of melatonin twice a day for 4 weeks. The other group gets a placebo, a sugar pill that looks exactly the same. But here's the really clever part. It was double-blind. That means nobody knew who was getting the real pill, not the patients and not even the researchers giving it to them. That's how you remove all the bias and get results you can actually trust. All right, so after 4 weeks, it was the moment of truth. All the data was in, the secret codes were broken to see who got what, and everyone was waiting to find out, did it actually work? Did melatonin make a real difference? And the results were, wow, they were pretty stunning. I mean, this chart really says it all. The group that took the melatonin had a huge drop in their hot flashes, not just how often they happened, but how bad they were. They absolutely blew the placebo group out of the water, and we're talking about statistically significant results here. This is the kind of data that makes the entire scientific community sit up and pay attention. And it didn't stop with just hot flashes. Look at this. This chart shows the overall quality of life. Now, on this scale, a lower score is better. It means your symptoms are less of a problem. And you can see the score for the melatonin group just plummeted. This wasn't just some tiny improvement. This was a massive leap forward in their day-to-day lives. The study also went into a really sensitive but incredibly important area, sexual health. And the results here were just as amazing. The women taking melatonin reported significant improvements pretty much across the board in desire, arousal, lubrication, orgasm, and a big reduction in pain. I mean, for so many people, this could be absolutely life-changing. Okay, but was it safe? That's the big question, right? And the news here is fantastic. There are basically no major side effects. A couple of people reported being a little sleepy during the day, but it wasn't even enough to be statistically significant. So, long story short, it was incredibly well tolerated. So what's the big takeaway from all this? Well, it could be a real turning point. We could be looking at a safe, cheap, and effective new tool to help give breast cancer survivors their quality of life back. You know, the researchers who actually did the study summed it up best. They said, and I'm quoting here, that melatonin can be considered a potential candidate to include in the treatment regimen for these patients. That is a huge statement, and it's one they can make because the data is just so strong. Now, of course, we have to be realistic here. This was a pretty small study, only 60 people. And they only followed them for 4 weeks. So while it's an incredibly promising start, it's not the final word. We definitely need bigger, longer studies to really confirm these amazing findings. But it leaves us with this really incredible question. After all this time, after all the searching, could the answer to improving the lives of millions of survivors not be some brand new, expensive drug, but a simple, humble supplement you can get anywhere? The results of this study suggest that the answer could be yes. And that's a huge reason to be hopeful.